Good evening. I'm going to call to order the January 21st Town of Pittsburgh Planning Board regular meeting. It does look like we had a full board today, so we are certifying a quorum. Next, has everyone had an opportunity to look over the minutes from last month? Is there any discussion or any modifications anybody would like to make? All right, then I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes from last month.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second. Have a second. Seconded by Alan Wilson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, and then we will go to, do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
No public comment. I will ask that members of the public just keep conversation to a minimum, as it does, you can hear me echoing right now. Move on. I don't believe we have any old business. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Oh, I'm sorry, I did not adopt the agenda. Do we have everybody's been over the agenda, anything that they would like to add or subtract from the agenda?
I guess we need to remove the training from the agenda if we're going to postpone that. Is that still the plan?
Will we just get to that and then recess for it, or will we?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, if you all can meet at a different date, let's say next week or 2 weeks from now, then you can recess the meeting until a designated time that you all decide, and then the staff can come back and continue that training for you.
So when we get to that item, then we'll discuss it.
Okay, so we'll leave it on the agenda.
We're not going to make that decision now, or
What's that?
we're not going to make that decision now, or we'll just wait. Okay.
Yeah, when we get to it.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Do I have a motion to?
yeah,
Yes,
I'll
adopt
move
the
to
agenda.
approve the agenda, yeah.
Do I have a second?
Who seconded?
Second.
Second by Jamie Buster. All right, all in favor of approving the agenda as proposed, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, we will move on. No comment, no public comment. We have no old business. New business, we do have two new members to the board, Ms. Connie McAdams and Mr. Jamie, correct?
Yeah.
You go by Jamie Buster. If you would like to introduce yourself, Connie.
Okay, I'm Connie McAdams. I'm going to be representing the ETJ for a year, I believe.
Okay.
And I'm happy to be here. Look forward to working with you.
All right.
And I'm Jamie Buster. I live at 85 Noe Street, so in town, member. Wife and I live here, and got 2 kids here that went to Northwood, and happy to be here.
All right. Thank you guys, we're excited to have you. We will move on to our first item, the Chatham Park Affordable Housing Element Amendment. And Mr. Jonathan Franklin, I believe, is going to present that to us.
Thank you, Chairman. Jonathan Franklin, Town Manager for the Town of Pittsburgh. Nice to be in front of you all. I think this is the first time that I've been in front of you all so far since I've been in the job. So happy to be here with this item that we have worked on for probably 15 to 18 months, it feels like, going back and forth trying to get all these details sorted out. The initial issue was that some of the original language in the original element was not compliant with some federal and state laws. Then another issue arrived whenever we merged with Tri-River, and the SDF fees went from a nice $5,000 SDF to $15,500. And that prompted a lot of this stuff to get looked at and figured out and renegotiated. So real quick, some of the major changes is initially Chatham Park is required to create these affordable housing units based on platted lots as they move through their 22,000 units. So one thing that worked out for Chatham Park and the town of Pittsburgh is moving that designation from platted lots to COs. One thing that we saw was that Chatham Park, because they had to build the affordable housing prior to getting their next tranche of, let's say, market rate housing, they had to build all the affordable at one time, which causes it to get clustered. We want to see that sprinkled throughout. So moving that from a platted lot to a CO designation allows that to happen. So that was one of the first major ones.
Could you, sorry to interrupt, but could you just CO? What is CO?
Certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
Yeah, and you get that basically when the structure is ready for occupancy.
So the question I've got is, so they will apply for a CO and it will be delayed until it's determined that they have met their obligation for affordable housing.
So the CO will be the point at which we say that the unit has been created. So before, whenever they submitted a plat for, let's say, 500 homes, that would count against them in terms of them having to create their affordable housing. So now they can plat as many lots as they want to, and it doesn't affect how they create the affordable housing. The affordable housing creation is triggered once they hit that number of COs. So it delays the timeline for which they have to create the affordable housing, which we think will help. It helps them financially, but also we think it'll help them be able to sprinkle the affordable housing throughout their development and not just have to build it quickly so they can move on to their next group of houses. Because if you look on the chart, page,
Are they obligated to sprinkle it throughout, or do
they're
they
not.
have to wait?
They're not.
Oh, yeah.
They're not obligated, no.
So
So if you look at this chart, on the far left-hand side, you can see prior to DU platted in Chatham Park, and you've got 5,000, 7,500, 10,000. So that's going to go from platted lots to COs. So it will allow them to go through their full planning process without having to then build the affordable housing prior to getting more houses platted. So by the nature of it, this will allow them to sprinkle it throughout and not just cluster it. One example is the Comet project. Chatham Park needed to build those units in order to get their platted lots for Asteria. So if you were to back that out in CO, Asteria is going to be built over 5 to 7 years. Then they could have sprinkled that affordable housing throughout the Chatham Park and not just that one location. Next one is no restriction on 120% AMI units, but there's also no incentive. So the original element had, we would reimburse SDFs for all units. This takes the incentive away from the units that are 81% to 120% AMI. But because we're not providing any incentive, they don't have to restrict that for 30 years. 90% of the units are going to be multifamily. So 120% AMI, multifamily unit, that's pretty much market rate. So in my belief, public money should be going to incentivize the development of market rate housing. It just doesn't make sense. The next one is the 15-year restriction on the 80% AMI. That used to be 30, so that's been knocked down to a 15-year restriction, which is the federal minimum for public money to be used, and that's a $5,000 incentive. So half the restriction, half the money. For the...
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
I am very unclear about the incentive structure. Is it possible for you just, I mean, I can read it, but I don't really understand what it means, I guess is the best way to say it. So the town shall pay a sum of that $10,000, and then, so, I guess that's, maybe that's sewer, but I'm just, can you just clarify for me?
Sure.
How they understand?
In the original element, we were reimbursing Chatham Park for their SDF, which is the system development fees that you pay for connecting to the water and sewer system. So when that was...
And it was that, and it was also like school, like, you know, school planning fees, all the fees, right? All the fees associated with the affordable housing units for...
Not technically.
Now, did I misread that?
Previously, I believe we were not charging them planning fees, but we did away with that. But there is some language in here about us working with the county for reimbursement of school fees and ad valorem taxes that the county's collecting on Chatham Park to help incentivize some of these other affordable housing developments.
Okay. And so now you're saying that once they get to the multifamily housing, once they build multifamily housing, we're no longer incentivizing them for those, incentivizing them through the rebates through these.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
At the 120% AMI.
Cool.
So 60% of their units are between 81% and 120% AMI, which means their target's going to be 120%. Right. 20% of the new element, 20% is from 61 to 80%, and then the other 20% is 60% and below.
Okay. Got it.
So 30-year restriction still in the 60% AMI units, and that's a $10,000 incentive or SDF reimbursement. Because the original part I mentioned, the financial liability for the town on the initial element was about $8 million, and that was 1,650 units at $5,000 a pop, back when the SDF was that low. So when we did the merger, SDF went to 15.5, which put our overall liability at $25 million. That is not something the town could handle over the long term, certainly not the short term. So with this, that liability is now down to $5 million. One last thing that we kind of worked out towards the end was Chatham Park would help design and build the greenway that's going to serve the Habitat for Humanity project on Timber Loop. They will get credit for 52 units. Those units are townhomes, and they will be owner occupied. But Chatham Park's going to get credit for 52 multifamily units, which I think is a really good selling point for the town of Pittsburgh. That's $650,000 max. And an important note also is that this is kind of a net savings to the town of $910,000. We had originally signed an MOU with Habitat for Humanity. The town would use some of its affordable housing funding to help pay for that greenway because they couldn't get the numbers to pencil if they had to build a greenway per zoning or per subdivision regulations. So Chatham Park will build that. That saves the town $650,000. And then we also will not have to pay the $5,000 reimbursement on those 52 units if they were to create them. So that's another $260,000, total $910,000 savings. One of the issues that Chatham Park has was ensuring that the town of Pittsburgh would actually pay its bill. So we had 120 days, but Chatham Park wanted and needed basically an insurance that we would pay. From a business standpoint, totally agree upon that. So we extended that out to 365 days, or 1 year, from the time they invoice us. So when they build a unit, they will go to Tri-River. They will pay the SDF. Tri-River will come put the meter in. At that point, the house will get its CO, and it can be occupied. I'm sure a few weeks later, Chatham Park will send us an invoice, and then from that date of receipt of the invoice, we'll have 1 year to pay it. So the total runway that we'll have is anywhere between 2 to 3 years. From the time that they come in for a pre-scoping meeting and say, hey, we're going to build these affordable units, then that's when we can start saving. So we'll have plenty of runway in the meantime to make sure we have this money in the bank. Legal changes, as I mentioned before, the 60% AMI went from 15% of the overall total to 20%. That is a requirement by either state or federal law. 20% of the project has to be 60% AMI or lower in order to qualify for public funding. So we made those changes, which is also for the betterment of the community too, because now we have more units that will be in our area of need. They'll show their impact of public funding through redacted settlement statements. This is very likely for several of these projects. In order for them to pencil, Chatham Park's going to have to donate that land. So they will show us on the settlement statement that they donated X number of dollars worth of land for this project to work, which will very likely be far less or far more than what the town will be incentivizing that project for. And I mentioned the financial liability changes going from 8 million to 25 down to 5 million. So that is that's all I have.
All right, is there any discussion on that? Any more questions for John?
Just one. I mean, we kept the 81 to 120 at 60%. Was there ever any thought given to lowering that so that the 61 to 80 could be increased?
There was.
Okay, and so,
It was not agreed upon,
okay,
because that was the first batch that I pulled from. So then the compromise was, well, we'll pull it from the 80 down. So
good thought.
yeah, I tried, yeah. Towards the end, it was, yeah, Tim Smith's a good negotiator. I think he was well matched, but you know, we went back again. This was not something that was done in a few months. I mean, we've been working on this for over a year. This is probably the 5th version, 6th version. So it's been a struggle. But I think this is a good deal for the town. I think it's a pretty good deal for Chatham Park. Helps them kind of move through their process a little smoother. It gives us a lot of time and runway to put the money together to make sure that we can pay our bills. There's more 60% units. We're assisting Habitat for Humanity in the Greenway. Overall, I think it's better than where we were. And we're also not incentivizing market rate housing like we were previously.
That sounds good. If no one else has any other questions, anything to add?
I'd just like to say I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I mean, yeah, I can imagine what the negotiations were like with Chatham Park. So, yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it certainly is, you know, a fundamental issue for us. So, you know, being able to renegotiate this to our advantage, especially that, you know, providing affordable housing is great as long as the town doesn't go under doing it. So, yeah, that's a big consideration.
Yeah.
I have a question about like donated land. Did that change at all? Or I was a little confused with some of the different changes.
Yeah, the town is not interested in donated land, right? Because we don't build affordable housing. So we want the builders and the developers to be building on land. And so we initially tried to take all of that out. And then that's kind of where the negotiation started getting sideways, where I think Chatham Park's concern is some of these income limits, it's almost impossible to do unless you can get some subsidy. And the federal projects where you apply for the federal subsidies are very, very competitive. And so I don't think they wanted to get their hands tied if they had a project that they were trying to build that took 6-8 years to build and they just couldn't get it done and couldn't get the funding. So I think that's where they wanted to kind of have an exit ramp to donate the land and move on. But I think we've made it clear we're not interested in the donated land. I think they understand that it's their job to build it, they're going to do their best. And I think that's shown with Comet, which in looking at their plans, I don't know if they've made it to y'all yet. I think they have.
I don't believe so.
No.
So that's an excellent example of what they're doing. I mean, this is essentially, I had the numbers written down. Yeah, 51 units, 60 and below, 84 units at 80% below. I want to say the total is what, 386?
68.
368? So 368 units, the rest of those being 120 and below. This can have pickleball courts, a greenway that wraps through, a clubhouse, a pool. I mean, they're building it as a market rate apartment complex that's pretty much a lot of their affordable units are going to be gathered right there. So I think if we continue to see those type of examples rolling through, they're not going to have a problem putting these together. And they've got another 86 units with fire tower coming, and that will be a federal subsidized project. It's going to be, that developer's already setting up meetings with the town and county to try to figure out how to bridge the funding gap, because they've got a couple $100,000 they're trying to find. So.
I've asked this question before, but is there any way to ensure that these are owner-occupied? Or
So what, 10% of them will be owner-occupied?
10%?
10%, yeah. Because it's pretty difficult to do an owner-occupied affordable housing unit below 60. I think you get a little easier when you're around the 70 to 80%. And of course, much easier, higher you go with that, but that is something that we do have to work on. Those numbers were not available for negotiation in this. Hopefully Chatham Park will come back and need something from us at a later date, and maybe we can renegotiate those numbers. But that is something that we are focused on with our other developers and builders that are coming in, is trying to get more owner-occupied units below 80%. And I think in the future, we're probably going to have to compromise on the number of units for the quality of unit, right? So rather than saying, hey, create 100 rental units, how about you create 20 homeowner-occupied units? So that's something we'll focus on moving forward.
And that's an excellent point. I guess that prompted a question I had. I mean, there's been no discussion of condominiums at all, has there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. I think there has been discussions of condominiums in general, but not for affordable.
Okay.
Because we've got some projects coming in that's called Lock and Leave. It's a single family home. It looks like a condominium, sounds like a condominium, but it is single family detached. Actually, I think they're single family attached, but you don't maintain anything on the exterior of the house. So we are starting to see these new types of units coming in.
One question I had when I was reading maybe the documents that Teresa sent over, it said something to the effect of, okay, I'm going to read it to you just to make it easier, just so I understand. 90% of the total number of dwelling units provided to satisfy the requirements of this element shall remain an AHU or WHU as applicable for 30 years, beginning with the year in which it first is occupied, provided each AHU shall remain on AHU for 30 years. And then it says, with respect to each WHU that is subject to the 30-year requirement for each month during the 30 years, that the monthly fair market rent for the WHU exceeds 1/20 of the applicable MFI divided by 12, the town will pay the excess for that month. What is it? I didn't quite understand what that meant. So if
Yeah, where's that at?
okay, great question. I put it in my notes, but I didn't highlight because I was so I was trying my very best to find it. So hold please.
Now, is that in the original document?
That's the original thing that Teresa sent over. Because I was like, what are we paying here? I don't understand.
Because if it is, we gotta take that out.
Because I. Sorry, I should have had it highlighted and
That's
at
okay.
least referenced, in some way, so I could, when I brought this up, I could show you exactly what I was talking about. But I think it's section 6.
Is it the top of page 6?
It's on page 9 of the packet, PG packet 10212025 version 2.
Oh, that's, okay. Page 9.
Well, it's page 9, but in the document it's page 4.
Is it
So
the old one, not the new
yeah,
one?
it's the old one.
Oh, well then, yeah,
So that's
that's
totally
all.
restricted then.
Yeah, I think that's what Jonathan was talking about when he was talking about reducing the financial liability of the town because of those payments.
That's different on this one.
The revised version.
And I can show you, if it's easier, I can show you where I have it so you can see.
Oh, no, I'm looking at it now, but I'm checking to make sure it's not in the new one.
Okay.
It's not new.
It's not under those provisions.
Because if it is, we got some more negotiating to do. Yeah, I do not see it in there.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, way to point that out, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I just didn't understand what that meant. So I was like, what are we paying? What could that mean? So, okay, great. Cool.
Ooh, you had me worried there for a second. I was like, oh, no, I missed something. Apparently I needed 2 years.
Well, I'm glad it's not in the new one. I apologize, I was traveling today, so I didn't get a chance to really review the new one that you sent.
No, that's okay.
So I
It's a
just wanted to
difficult
flag
topic.
it just in case, because I was like, I don't know what that means and what does that liability look like. So, okay, great, cool.
All right, if no one else has anything, any more questions, anything to add, I will accept a motion to approve. Or deny.
So moved.
Okay. And is that is a motion to approve?
accept, yeah, to accept the
recommend approval as presented. Sorry, as amended.
If I could, a motion to recommend approval of the updated affordable housing element. It's in your packet.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the updated affordable housing element.
Go ahead.
Second.
All right. Motion made by Alan, seconded by Charity. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed indicate by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. I guess from there then, we will move on to our small area plan training. This item we had discussed about going into a recess and doing it at a later date, assuming the weather, I can't tell. Yes, okay, now I see. It is coming down pretty good. So if we could then discuss a date and time that would work for everybody to come back and complete our small area plan training.
Teresa, are you leading the training?
I will be.
Do you have a suggestion of
I'm
the
available.
starting point?
I'm available any night next week. That's too soon for y'all.
Would Monday be an issue for anyone? Monday, we'll say same time, Monday at 6 o'clock.
I have a conflict on Monday.
Okay, then we can change it. Tuesday?
I have conflicts Tuesday and Wednesday, but I mean, y'all.
Tuesday, Wednesday, okay.
Yeah.
How does Thursday look for everyone? Thursday next week at 7 a.m. Midnight. 6 p.m. 6 p.m.
All right, I can't do Thursday.
No, okay.
Following Monday.
I was gonna say next week then, maybe the following, so it'd be the 3rd.
I can do that.
Yep.
Everyone else? All right. I guess let me make sure I don't have a conflict with it. But I'm gonna leave, so we.
Since it's a training, do we have to have, does it have to be like this, like a formal thing where we have to public comment, or could we do like Zoom or something like that?
We will have it open for the public to view, but we're going to sit together like at the same table.
Okay.
Versus us being separated. Because it'll be more of an interactive discussion.
Okay, so then I'll just take a motion to recess the rest of this. Okay. Can I have a motion to recess until Monday the 3rd at 6 p.m.
I know the planning board goes into recess until Monday the 3rd at 6 p.m. February 3rd.
Second.
All right, motion by Jamie, seconded by Christina. All in favor indicate by saying aye. All right, all opposed indicate by saying aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. So we will go ahead and also take a motion to adjourn.
Was that you just need to recess? Yeah, we already recessed.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, so, well, then I guess that concludes, tonight's meeting.
And thank you all for coming out, and the weather, I greatly appreciate it, so we can move this item forward.
Yeah, everybody please, be safe, head home.